Yo, what's up you guys? Welcome back to Second Take. It's Vishwa here, and today we're going to be covering the Cleveland Cavaliers and who they should select in this year's draft, and then dive into another interesting topic revolving around the future of Collin Sexton on the team. I'll also be talking in brief about the Cavs' overall roster and how they can build towards a bright future with their already existing promising young pieces and acquisitions they can make through the NBA draft on July 29 and possible trades. So without delay, please make sure to smash that like button and remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I promise you will not regret it, and let's get straight into the video. To start off, I'll first address the Cavs roster as a whole in brief. The Cavs are coming off a very rough 22-50 record, finishing as a 13th seed in the Eastern Conference. They went through many challenges as firstly, their player to coach chemistry was terrible to say the least, as interim head coach John Beilein was rumored to have called his players thugs and was described as a dictator by several players. The chaos ultimately led to Beilein resigning the head coach job with 28 games left in the season, and he'd then be replaced by current head coach JB Bickerstaff. The roster simply didn't seem to have enough experience, talent, and proper offensive coordination and execution. However, the team does have some young players like Collin Sexton, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, and Jarrett Allen, who they traded for early in the season. I'll talk a bit more on the Cavs' young core in a bit. Other than them, there wasn't much really talent in Cleveland, and as I've mentioned in a previous video, they already managed to give up perhaps the best talent they could have had in Kevin Porter Jr., trading him for just a second-round pick. But anyway, this team is still in the rebuilding process, and more changes to the roster need to happen in order for the team to be put on the right direction, such as developing young talent, picking up a good veteran in free agency, getting rid of bad contracts, and nailing the third pick in this year's draft. And speaking of the draft, that's where we'll transition to our next segment of the video, which is who the Cavs should select in this year's draft. First of all, in addition to the majority of the mock drafts, believe that Cade Cunningham will go number 1 to the Detroit Pistons and Jalen Green will go number 2 to the Houston Rockets. That leaves the two best options in the draft class for the Cavs as USC big man Evan Mobley or Gonzaga star combo guard Jalen Suggs. Both these options are terrific for how the Cavs can grow going forward. Suggs is a very versatile guard that can play well along Darius Garland with his all-around two-way ability, explosive scoring, shooting, and occasional playmaking. He's known for hitting the infamous insane game-winning shot in the Final Four match against UCLA, leading his team to the finals, which his team would unfortunately fall to Baylor. This season, Suggs averaged 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, along with 2 steals, shooting 50% overall and 33% from three-point range. His three-point efficiency was definitely a struggle, but he did show a lot of promise with his all-around game. As for Evan Mobley, he could very well end up being the best player in the draft class, as he is a 7-footer with an extremely amazing all-around versatility at both the 4 and the 5 positions. Many have compared his game to that of Anthony Davis, as both have freakish athleticism, touch around the basket, a smooth jump shot, and terrific defensive instincts. This year, he averaged 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists, along with 3 blocks, shooting an outstanding 57% overall. He has all the makings for a future NBA star, but his only question is his thin frame at only 215 pounds and could get bullied by the stronger bigs of today's game. As for who the Cavs should select, I personally think that they should select Evan Mobley, and many mock drafts also have them taking the big man as well. I know many of you guys may be thinking, what's the point of taking Mobley when you have Jarrett Allen, who is a beast? That is a very great question, as in fact, GM Kobe Altman has also stated that he plans on keeping Allen as the future center and definitely thinks he's worth an $100 million contract. Trading for Allen was also a trade he claimed was too good to pass up, and rightfully so, because Allen has been an absolute beast as both a shot blocker, crashing the boards, and an occasional offensive boost as well. Even though Jarrett Allen is likely to remain the future starting center for the team, I still believe Evan Mobley's potential and ceiling is too much to pass on. For example, the Portland Trail Blazers made perhaps the biggest mistake of all time, drafting Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan just because they already had Clyde Drexler in 1984, and the Cavs simply can't afford to pass up on Mobley. By the way, I'm not comparing the situations directly, but you guys get the point. However, the benefit of selecting Mobley is that he can also play the power forward position due to his overall versatility I explained earlier, although there is a decent chance this experiment may not work because of their similar playstyle defensively. I definitely think it's worth a shot and could turn out to be one of the scariest front courts about 3 to 5 years down the line. A young core of Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen is definitely a promising young core capable of big things. Notice I did not mention star guard Collin Sexton due to a good reason. Let's first take a look at the good side of Sexton. This season, Sexton averaged 24 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds, shooting 47% from the field and 37% from three-point range. Obviously, these are stats that look extremely good, and Sexton also had several extraordinary games, such as a career-high 42 points against the powerhouse Brooklyn Nets with all 3 of their superstars, propelling Cleveland to a victory. However, there are several negatives about Sexton, noticed by fans, his teammates, and players around the league too. Firstly, Sexton is a defensive liability and has a 122 defensive rating, which is way worse than the league average, which is 110. Pairing him up with Darius Garland will simply be disastrous for the team defensively, as both are extremely undersized in the backcourt as well at 6'1". Secondly, he simply does not fit the dynamic Cleveland is trying to build. He shoots the ball 18 to 19 times a game, and even though he's scoring the ball, the Cavs are barely racking up any wins, making his stats empty. And while Sexton is flourishing offensively, his teammates barely get any chances because of him having such a high usage rate. Finally, reportedly, many of his teammates have expressed their frustrations that Sexton is taking too many shots and also doesn't pass the ball enough. Overall, Sexton's presence on the team won't do any good for the Cavs in developing any of their young guys like Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, Isaac Okoro, and perhaps Evan Mobley as well, due to the ball-dominant style of play he has. I also see his ceiling as more of a premier sixth man rather than a star in today's game. Here are some possible trades the Cavs could make involving Sexton. One trade features the Cavs giving up Colin Sexton to the Clippers for Terrence Mann, Amir Coffey, and a future first-round pick. This trade works out for the Clippers because there is a looming possibility of Kawhi Leonard leaving LA this offseason, and Reggie Jackson, their current point guard, will also be a free agent as well. Either way, the Clippers might be in need of a scoring guard like Sexton as a sixth man or as a starter at either guard position. As for the Cavs, they would be receiving Terrence Mann, who has tremendous potential, especially after his breakout playoff series with the Clippers. He's a terrific two-way player that could really boost their backcourt well. Coffey is pretty much just for bench depth, and they will also be getting a future first-round pick too. I know it seems like Cleveland isn't getting nearly enough for Sexton, but it's more of a benefit to have him off the team because the Cavs were never going to go anywhere with Sexton as a team leader. Another possible trade would be Cleveland giving up Sexton to the New York Knicks for Obi Toppin and the 19th overall pick in this year's draft. They may need to include a second-round pick or Kevin Knox as well, but anyway, as the Knicks were as high as the 4th seed this year, they simply just need another scorer and decent distributor along with Julius Randle to flourish even more. I definitely feel like Sexton could be a terrific fit in New York, as he is an automatic bucket, and as the New York Knicks were one of the best defensive teams this season, the offensive end would take a huge boost as a result of acquiring Sexton. Obi Toppin was never going to have a future with the Knicks behind Julius Randle, who's an all-star and the league leader in minutes per game. However, with Cleveland, he can really feel less pressure and can develop good chemistry really quick with Darius Garland, catching his lobs and showcasing his true offensive package. He can either start at the 4 if the Cleveland Cavaliers draft Jalen Suggs for whatever reason, or he can be a Montrezl Harrell type of bench spark as a sixth man, providing a lot of energy if they take Evan Mobley. The 19th pick will also prove to be useful in a very stacked draft class this year. The Knicks may have to throw in another asset once again. Final trade would be Sexton and Taurean Prince for Marcus Smart, Aaron Nesmith, and a future first-round pick. The Celtics just lost Kemba Walker, and an upgraded scorer as a third option like Sexton could really prove to be useful for the Celtics, who struggle to find much help for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as scorers. Sexton can either start at the 1 or serve as a sixth man for the team in hopes of making a further playoff push. Prince also depicts a solid 3-and-D wing off the bench who can strengthen the bench depth. As for Cleveland, although Marcus Smart's contract ends in 2022, he can definitely provide a lot for a young team like the Cavs with his defensive presence, veteran leadership, and developing the younger guys like Garland and Okoro as a mentor. Nesmith can also be a good bench scoring option with a shooting specialty and great defense, and once again, the Cavs would receive a first-round pick as well, so it works out well for both sides. Before we finish off the video, I just wanted to bring up a few more names for Cleveland in free agency that they could acquire. 3 common names I've seen come up are TJ McConnell of the Pacers and both Alex Caruso and Talen Horton-Tucker from the Lakers. McConnell is one of the best backup point guards in the NBA, and although he's not a great outside shooter, he's among the league's leaders in steals per game. He brings a lot of tenacity defensively and is a great floor general on the offensive end. His veteran presence can definitely be a huge benefit for a young Cavs roster. Caruso and THT are also great options, but I likely see LA keeping THT, but I don't know if they'll be able to retain Caruso though. Either way, both these guys are great two-way players players and provide big energy boosts as well. A few more options Cleveland could acquire consist of Reggie Bullock, Doug McDermott, Austin Rivers, or Josh Hart, who's also reportedly seeking a fresh start. Either way, I think a solid veteran guard or a two-way playmaking wing would prove to be very useful to the Cavs, with the potential to not necessarily make the playoffs, but to also show a lot of growth next season, in addition to getting rid of bad contracts like that of Kevin Love. Anyway, these were my thoughts on who the Cavs should draft this year, some possible Sexton trades they could make, and possible free agent acquisitions as well. To me, if you combine a young core of Darius Garland, who's looking to make big strides next season, along with Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen, along with the trade piece in return for Colin Sexton, plus a polished veteran player, the Cavs can really show huge signs of having a much brighter future that could grow more and more year by year. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Comment down below your thoughts on Cleveland's roster as a whole and their future as well, and what offseason moves they can make as well. Please smash that like button if you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.